Welcome to episode 41 of Rubbish Talk with myself, Alistair Meldrum.
And myself, Jane Bond.
And what we've got today, Jane, we've had the big UK election in the last week. So before we get on to that, our guest today is Anna Klos, and more about her later on. But election, we're looking at Steve Reid, OBE MP, is the new Minister or Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and we were trying to work this out earlier. We think he's the man for waste management.
Well, we think so, yeah. It's kind of. I did try and Google who deals with waste, but it didn't really come back up. Very much, it must be him.
I think the challenge we might have is maybe waste management is maybe not the top of the priority of the things that need to be actioned. But I did find a little bit of background about him. That one of the reports I read was that the Labour manifesto didn't have much reference about recycling, about waste management, but it did have a commitment to move towards the circular economy. And it did mention that Steve Reid wanted to learn from the recycling success of the Labour administration in Wales. And if you remember back to episode 36, we talked to Louise Cowan from Climate Team at Local Partnerships, who was quite involved with the changes there. So maybe some interesting stuff. But I thought it'd be quite nice to do. I would like to see them. What would I like to see them doing? I would like to see them trying to align policies across the UK rather than us always diverging away. That we've just made it ridiculously complicated. I sat in a CRWM call yesterday about green skills. And it all sounds great. They're planning all sorts of things for England. And then you ask the question, what's happening in Scotland, Northern Ireland? And say, well, that's devolved, so you've got to deal with that yourself. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, we're all producing waste. We should all be handling it reasonably consistently. And maybe we could, you know, rather than diverging away from each other, we could, you know, come together a little bit.
And that's the thing. Everybody wants to do their own little bits, don't they? And each of the devolved countries want to be better than the other. And
which is good. But I think maybe we need to learn off each other, and you know, where it's working. You know, there was, again at this CRWM call, without talking out turn, there was an academic there, and he was saying, you know, fairly forcefully that. You know, particularly down south in England, the waste and resource sector has really failed to engage with the academic sector and learn from, you know, some of the research they're doing. So interesting times, I think.
But it depends what research they're doing, doesn't it, really? You know, it's like, is that research practical, or is it a bit more kind of esoterical, a bit blue sky thinking?
That was a big word for a Wednesday morning, Jane.
I know, it was a bit, wasn't it?
Where did that one come from?
I just have to check to make sure it is the right word.
So what about your wish list? What's yours? What were you spotted?
Well, there was a CRWM had, we're back to CRWM, actually, they had their sort of 10 policy recommendations. So they were putting an ask to the government to say, well, what can we do? And implementing the existing resource and waste strategy policies would be quite good. I guess the thing is, we've talked about this quite a lot, that we're good at strategies, we're not actually very good at implementing them. So perhaps that's a good first ask. And again, it's all the other policy things. Launch a green skills fund. So always talks about the fact that renewables, you know, waste management, all this sort of resource management should bring in all these new, more jobs and everything like that. And it's kind of like, right, okay, well, that's great. So where do we identify where these jobs are? Where's the plan? Where's the, you know, where's that green skills? How are we introducing people into the sector? I think they were talking about, you know, the fact that a lot of older guys, particularly sort of, I don't know, frontline people, are retiring and all that sort of stuff, and there's not enough people coming up behind to take on those roles and those jobs. So it's, how do you encourage that? So yeah, that's one of the policies. So I don't know, I guess we watch this space, don't we, really?
Absolutely.
And hope they get on with it.
Well, there is that. I still get a bit triggered by this green skills. I'm like, to me it just is skills. We need to make sure people have the right skills for the jobs of the future. And okay, we've dressed it up as green skills, but at the end of the day, everybody should be trained in how to manage waste properly. Everybody should be trained in how to manage resource, and as part and parcel of what we should do. And okay, if we need to badge it up as green skills, then fair be it to make it happen. But at the end of the day, that's is basics. But one of the ones I picked up that was quite interesting was the to me it's back to making sure the basics get done. And interestingly, Highland Council have rolled out food waste recycling in Easter Ross. So I think in terms of legislation, that was one of the exempt areas, so that's why it was never rolled out. But they're highlighting an expansion. They've had well above national averages in terms of tonnages received. Without being too harsh on Highland Council and Veronica up there, getting above the national average is not particularly hard when only 20% of people use food waste. But it's great to see, it is good to see that they've rolled it out, they've blessed it, and they've got the public behind it. And that's really what we should be doing rather than another policy. Really we should be getting, the system that's out there, getting it operating to the maximum.
Yeah,
and
because I
really
think
focus on that practical bit.
because they were rolling out quite a few things up there in Highland Council, because I know we were helping them with their toolbox talks and getting that. And I think again they were doing a lot of promotion and a lot of putting information out, which totally is what you need. And I always think the thing is, you do all this promotion at the beginning and it's like, yeah, it's fantastic, whoa, and then like 2 years down the line it all goes
They
a bit,
forget about it.
and you just need to keep going with it. Anyway,
Yeah.
what else did you find?
No, I think that's enough election things. I've not actually found. I think everybody's on holiday at the moment, so there wasn't a huge amount of information about what's happening. So I think a lot of people are just sitting watching this space. But really interested for any listeners what their thoughts are on what the government should be doing and looking at going forward. So anyway, on to lighter topics. Young Mia has found a really exciting post. It's not totally waste related, but it's about scientists are turning rhinos' horns radioactive. And when they make them radioactive, it means that they can't be ground up and eaten, because people don't really want to eat radioactive horns. So it's to try and stop poachers. It does seem a bit cruel to the rhino, but they have assured that it's not harmful to the rhino. So they've got to capture the rhino, drill a wee hole in it, put the wee radioactive thing in, and then if that goes through an airport scanner, then it flags up that it's radioactive, and they get caught. So
okay, I suppose we just need to make sure that the radioactive stuff isn't going to hurt the rhino.
Well, I think they've worked that one out. I would like to hope they've worked that one out. So
fair enough.
But as always, we'll share the link to that exciting news item.
Can I go back to my rant on festivals?
Not festivals again, Jane.
And tents, right? Okay, so we had Glastonbury Festival. I haven't heard. I mean, I think we talked about last time about decathlon and that you could take your tent back and all this sort of stuff. And I haven't heard yet, or I haven't had a look yet about whether there's any stats about how much rubbish was left behind at Glastonbury yet. But somebody was looking at using cardboard tents. Now, when I read this at first, I thought, oh my God, they're just going to be like going to mush. Be like, can you imagine the whole of the Worthy Farm covered in cardboard slush? But apparently they're saying that Enviro tent, so somebody has created an Enviro tent, and not the type that turns to mush. So a 2-person tent is made of water-resistant cardboard that can still be recycled, but it has no special coatings, just fewer surface holes. So it's a new, I guess it's a new company. So Enviro tent. So that might be an option for next year, given that we're looking at a possible 70% of people who bought a tent in the past 5 years have either abandoned it or binned it.
just
250,000 nylon or polyester tents are abandoned each year. I mean, for goodness sake, making camping equipment the new single-use plastic. Really?
I just can't understand abandoning a tent. I just can't. I've still got a tent that I had when I was a student 30 odd years ago, and it's still a perfectly good tent that still gets used.
Yeah, but these are they do look like one-use tents, though, don't
Yeah.
they? They're kind of like blow-up
It's,
tents, or
they
or
break
whatever.
and all sorts.
I
Anyway,
don't know.
it's
Yeah.
not just, I did spot, it's not just the UK that's got a problem with this. I've spotted a post from the Netherlands, who are often viewed as being much more environmentally sustainable than us, and they've got exactly the same issue with their festivals and the amount of crap that's left after the end of festival. So
Yeah,
there
you
you
kind
go.
of think you've got a bin. Surely you've took it with you. Surely you can take
You
it.
can take it back. Of course
Yeah.
you can. Of course you can. But I think we're preaching to convert it here. But I noticed Transmit, the big festival in Glasgow Green, which is on fairly soon, I think. They've announced a disposable vape ban. So all these
Yeah.
people that use their vapes, like adult dummies, will not be able to have their adult dummy at the festival. So there you go. And I think they're also banning flags and glow sticks and selfie sticks, because to
You
try
get
and
left behind as well.
to
I
try and
suppose
cut down the
glass is
amount.
not a good thing either.
Yeah,
If you're on yeah. Yeah,
there
I
you
think, right, everybody collecting these bins and all this sort of stuff in this weather, pouring down with rain. It's
we
like,
had some sun on Monday. Come on,
yeah, do you know what? I put my washing out on Monday and I did a
and
load more
it's
thinking I'll put
rained.
it out on Tuesday. Yeah,
It's
rained ever
rained ever
since.
since. It's rained
Yeah,
ever since.
I tell
We
you what, yeah, we had a beer festival, Eagleton Beer Festival, and they give you out reusable sort of plastic glasses things. So, that's part of it, and then you go around and fill it and all this sort of stuff. And we had we took our gazebo because it was supposed to be raining, and it only rained a little bit. It wasn't too bad, but when we packed up and everything, we cleared all our rubbish, and to be honest, it wasn't bad at all, because we cleared it all up. There was big bins and everything everywhere, and there was actually somebody going round all the time picking up rubbish. So yeah, shout out to Eagleson Beer Festival, to be honest.
There you go. It's not really that hard. I think that's it's not that hard if people do the right thing and clear their own stuff up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but so talking about people in bad weather, we did actually manage to have 2 whole days at the start of this week where we were 100% in the office on solar.
And it's rained ever since.
And then it's rained ever since, and we're back to having to use mains power. So there we go. So at least they're working. If we know there's sun, if we get sun, they work. So maybe the occasional day in a year they'll work. So what about Albion news? Our recent news is we had our BSI audit for our 3 standards. So we've got the quality, the environmental, and the health and safety standard, and we had our 3-year reaccreditation, which is the biggie, and we sailed through with flying colours. We had one minor thing picked up. So well done to all the team for making sure the system works well, and when BSI come in, it's no problem to audit. And just for people out there that don't know, we actually Albion provide a bit of support to companies in terms of getting ready for their audits. So if your management system is needing a bit of love and care and attention before your audit, then by all means get in touch.
Yeah, give us a shout. I mean, and it's not like a 10-minute chat, is it? And we've like 2-3 days.
Oh, for the audit, yeah.
For the
yeah.
audit, I mean, that
Yeah.
was pretty intense, really. Poor Yaz was getting well stressed, but she did brilliantly. And I think we talked about our Glasgow City Chamber trip.
You weren't allowed to talk about that because the last episode went out on election day, so you were
It
barred.
did, that's right. We weren't allowed to talk about it. Yeah, well, me and Susan went along to Glasgow City Chambers, and we watched all our guys. We did a sustainability qualification with Glasgow City Council frontline guys, the bin men, and it was absolutely brilliant. It was 3 days for each. I think we did about 40, 50 guys in about 6 sessions.
Not just
And
guys, Jane, there were
girls
ladies
as
there as
well,
well.
we did as
Yes.
well. Sorry, we're very important. And we did that, and to be fair, everybody was engaged, and it was good discussions and good chat. And there was quite a lot to fill in. There's quite a lot of classroom sessions, and to be fair, these guys, and girls did it all, sorted it all out. We answered the questions, had some great discussions, and they got their qualifications presented to them at the Glasgow Chambers. So, just go to show you need to reward your staff, and I think everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's good that Glasgow did make the effort because the staff did put the work into. It was.
It
I
was the
think some of
SQA qualification. It
yeah,
wasn't just
yeah, no, it's a pretty big qualification. It's a pretty hard qualification, and they did put the work into it. And some of them, as you know, Jane, were I've not been in a classroom for 20 years, and it scared the life out of them doing a qualification. So
yeah, and
it's good. It's good.
We got some good feedback, so that's good.
Yeah.
We've also got some more upcoming training courses. We're going to build on our successes. So we've got a 2-day REHIS course, 13th and 14th of August, which again is all about waste management, legislation, policy, EWC codes, looking at dangerous goods, ADR, how that fits in with waste, and all that, everything to do with that and legislation. And then we've got we've got a day household waste recycling centre, one at the end of August, and again that's about how to manage waste recycling centres, what's the important parts, what's the legislation, what you need to do, what you focus on, how do you manage the actual workings and the operations of it without kind of having a fight with the public when they come in and want to do something stupid with their waste. And then we've got other ones in September as well. So we've got plenty of training courses coming up, so we can again put those links on and join in.
They're all on the website, and most of these ones can also be done in-house at your facilities rather than coming to us. So that's probably the sales pitch over,
Yeah, sorry guys. Do enjoy doing the training though. Love it.
Good. So we now speak to our guest Anna Klos. So this is a bit of a change. Last week we had Nick and his robots. So we're back to practical waste management. So Anna she's been an environmentalist from a young age. She grew up in Poland and went to university in Poland, and then came across to the UK. She had a number of different roles, and then she discovered the waste sector. And I think she's one of these people that now she's in the waste sector, she's not going to depart the waste sector. In my mind, she's a young person, enthusiastic person that we need in the waste sector. She's recently become a chartered member of CIWM, and she set up her own company doing WAMITAB assessments and COTC management cover for sites. So over to Anna.
I was going to
Klos.
say, Alistair, if people want to hear about how to skin a cat, they need to listen.
Oh yes, I forgot about that bit. Yeah, that's the tagline we need to go out in the social media, that if you want to know how to say skin a cat, listen to
Anna.
Listen to Anna. We'll not tell you which section that's on. So yes, we had a long conversation about skinning cats. So we'll pass over to Anna Klos and myself and Jane.
Hi Anna, how are you? Welcome to Rubbish Talk.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon, Alistair, Jane.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
Good afternoon, nice to see you. So we're going to go through a number of questions. Obviously, it's going to be all about you, Anna. And our first one is, who do you currently work for? And a bit of background about the organisation, because we know that you do some work for us for Albion. So I guess it's what you've been doing while you're working for Albion, doing some work for us and other work.
So I have currently decided to start working for myself. I thought I'll be a brave one and try to go out there and try my own skills on the market and see if I'm wanted. and you were the first organization who wanted me on. So thank you very much for that, for giving me the opportunity. What I would like to first provide is the One Meetup qualifications. I decided to do it a few years ago when I thought that there is not enough good assessors on the market, and I would like to be the assessor that I didn't have when I did my first qualification. I would like to be the present one, the supportive one, and as positive as possible, which is a very much of an opposite of what I've had when I were the first one, when I had my first qualification done. And that is my goal. That's what I want to be. I want to give back to the community. And waste industry is great, and I want to stay within the waste industry, and I want to help others to be a better managers, pretty much.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So what Whammy Tab certificates have you got? What kind of assessing are you doing?
So I myself hold HROC 6, which is the hazardous waste transfer and processing, MROC 1, 4, and 5, which are the, if I don't remember now specifically in order, that's going to be the AD, IVC, and MERV. So it is quite a good, but I have also worked in other sectors. I have worked in scrap of vehicles, which is the ELV, as well as WE. So I can also do a little bit of work around that due to the experience that I have rather than the qualifications. So that's pretty much what I'm going to focus on. If the opportunity comes, I would like to do some more one meetups myself and then to be able to provide training for them as well. But at this moment of time, I will focus on what I have. And when I have a little bit more time, I am hoping to maybe potentially in maybe other ways, either on the practical side or the theory side, somehow I would like to expand on my potential. So at this moment of time, it's all that.
So you're covering sort of AD, anaerobic digestion, investor composting, and hazardous waste. That's quite good. Doing your COTC, it's quite hard, isn't it? Because I'm just doing mine at the moment, and I hadn't realised quite how many questions and evidence and all that stuff there was. And actually, to have somebody who's quite supportive would be really useful.
It will be very useful. So when I did my first qualification, the HROC 6, that was 6 units. That was my first qualification. I didn't know how it's done, and I had so many questions. And my assessor was never for me there. Whenever I rang him, he were on holiday. When I asked him a question by email, the responses were like, well, you need to figure that out.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
And because I were doing my first one during COVID, when COVID first hit, the man would never come to site. He would not accept anything to be done by email. So I wanted, for example, to send him some of the work by email and say, chance you could assess it just by email because, you cannot come to site or you don't want to come to site. So no, everything has to be in the person. So for that reason, fortunately, I think back then it was still one meetup and not CAWM. They've allowed extension. So it took me 2.5 years to do that first one. It was an experience.
Wow, that is, yeah. Doing it in COVID must have been so hard as well.
But COVID was in a way, COVID was a good time to do them because people had time, people had time during COVID so we switched in terms of Albion, we very much switched we were almost doing 100% of the wards remotely. We even got to the extent of candidates videoing their premises and then doing a Q&A, like talking through the video on a Teams call and recording it and so on. So,
but that takes the willingness from the assessor. My assessor didn't have that willingness.
And your assessor wasn't from Albion, obviously, Anna.
No. My assessor wasn't for Albion, and he just didn't want. He wanted to do everything on paper. Emails were not his first choice for communication. It was always a phone call, but then it was difficult to find him in the country. But yeah, that was not the best experience. But because of that I had it so hard doing my first qualification, then when I started doing my MROCs, I've managed to do 3 of them in a space of 11 months.
Right.
Because I knew what I'm doing, because I had to do everything all by myself the first go. the second time, especially that I had a really good, very supportive assessor. The assessment center was really good. So thanks to that, I just did it in a speedy way, which is brilliant.
Do you know, it's like having a good teacher, isn't it? You know, if you have a good teacher, you always like your subject, you know, and it's so much harder when you don't have somebody that's supportive.
Yeah.
There is very much a learning, you know, we at Albu, we've been delivering the WAMATAB COTCs since probably 2002. And there is very definitely a learning curve that candidates go through as they work out what is needed and what's needed. And you go to two extremes. That, you know, you go to the extreme of people putting next to no effort into it and trying to get away, you know, try to blag everything, try to get the assessor to do everything, to the other extreme where somebody's wanting to write War and Peace and cover every aspect. And what they don't realise when they start is the awards are quite extensive. So you don't need to write War and Peace at the start, because at some point you're going to be asked about the other thing you're going to write about in the future. So there is very definitely a learning curve from candidates just try and get a feel for what's required.
Yeah, but then it also takes that good assessor to give the learner the guidance. So when they receive their first work, to give them that feedback saying, that was very good, but it was a little bit extensive. Next time, could you shorten it a smidge?
Yeah.
And otherwise as well, if they don't really take the describe definition to their heart and they only put it in a few bullet points, you need to give them the feedback the other way, that, you know, the word describe actually does have a definition, you have to stick to it.
So is your main focus with your, you know, the company, you're, you know, working for yourself, is that the main focus is on assessment, or are you providing any other, what other things are you doing?
So I will do TCM covers. So whenever possible, I will go to sites and be that technically competent person. Whenever somebody goes for holiday or if they lose somebody from the business, I'm always happy to go to sites and support them that way, be there and give them answer to any questions they will have. It once happened to me that I went to site as a TCM cover, and it happened that they had environment agency pop into site, and I then behaved as a site manager, walked them around. It came out quite well, even though that was my second time on site. I've managed, so yay, good for Anna.
Well done.
And I'm very passionate, and I would like to get more into the training field. So that's something that I am working on as well. I am also a trained or certified trainer, and that is something that I would like to explore and also develop some training for our industry.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going next.
So what's it like when you go onto a site that you've never been to before, you know, when you're going in as a technically competent person? Is it, I mean, you know,
Before you answer that, Anna, I was going to say it might be worth mentioning to listeners from the waste industry will know what we're talking about here, but listeners out with the waste industry. So if you operate a waste management facility in the UK, you need to have somebody called a technical competent manager managing that site, and they need to be on site for a certain percentage of time. The main route to be deemed to be technically competent is to get your WAMATAB certificate, technical competence, and that's the qualifications we've been talking about. So it was maybe worth a wee back step there before you answer there, Anna.
Yeah, so as you said, the terms TCM, Technically Competent Manager, COTC, which is the Certificate of Technical Competence, they are very often exchanged and they're used in the same term. It means pretty much the same. It is saying the same thing. It is pretty much a document or a qualification saying that a person is competent in the legislation that's health and safety, environmental, and operational for the specific sector of the waste industry, to prove that they know what they're doing when they run the site, that they know how to operate it safely, how to follow the environmental permit, pretty much, and to make sure that they do what they should be doing. So that is what the TCM is, or the technically competent manager. Answering your question, Jane, about what it's like to go to a different site. What I try to do before I go to a new place is either to ask the manager for a copy of the permit. That will also help me to get familiarized with what they do, how they do it, what are their processes. So when I then do go to their site, when I do their first site visit, I try to look at it as if I were there from the Environment Agency perspective and almost do like an audit on them to see if they are compliant. After every visit, I will have to complete a site visit report to make sure that those things are being followed according to their waste permit. So if they say that the storage of waste is so much tonnage, I need to try and assess whether the tonnage is within the limit, or is it over the capacity, or are they running surfaces okay? Is all of the waste being stored as they should be, and so on and so on. So it is always good to get familiarized with the permit, because you can only audit against something you know what it should be like. And one of my roles previously, that was the ELV role, was to be compliance manager. So I got very, very much familiarized with going around the site, looking into every nook and cranny, making sure that everything is done correctly. I get to the stage where I go around, and if I walk past the spill kit, I will always open and check if actually in that spill kit there is some spill material, or is it just rubbish, which unfortunately very often happens. Then I wouldn't put it on the report, but I will speak to the manager or somebody else who is responsible and give them the guidance. Look, I walked past that spill kit is empty. Could you
Put something in it, yeah. Yeah.
So
You must have lots of experience then on lots of different sites that you've been to, and you must see quite a range of operational practices. I'm not quite sure if that's the right word for it.
I mean, every company is different and they operate in a different way. However, they are industry standards that they need to follow. So it doesn't matter what company that is. The permits are given to a standard, and every company should follow, regardless. So yes, they might have bigger or smaller premises. They might have a different type of an equipment. However, the rules and procedures also always follow exactly the same way. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Rules are the rules, and it could be a standard permit, it could be a bespoke permit, but there will be a very specific differences between them. However, the health and safety, the environmental procedures always remain the same. Doesn't matter if you store electronic waste or if you store ELV waste, they always have to be stored on impermeable surfaces. So that's one of the things that you would look at. So if you have few of a crashed vehicle stored somewhere on the sand, they're not compliant, and that's as easy as it is. So knowing the rules and regulations and knowing their storage permit, the capacities, what they can store, what they cannot, that's why, and that's where the reading the environmental permit comes first. Before you go to site, always make sure you get the permit. Some of them are available and you can get them on the Environment Agency website, but they are not always there. So then it's worth to send a message to the manager and ask them for the permit beforehand. And that's what I try to do.
It's always a red flag to me when you ask for a permit and the manager can't provide it. It's always a bit.
What are you not telling me, or why don't you know where it is?
Yeah. So is the majority of sites you're working on at the moment then down in England?
Yes.
Yeah. Just quite interesting to see if...
I have recently been to one in Glasgow, big site, but that was probably just a one-off, as I was filling in a gap for somebody who normally covers, but that's what we are here for. If I am away on a holiday, somebody else will cover me.
It'd be quite interesting seeing what your take is on the difference between sites in England and Scotland, or the difference between the Environment Agency and SEPA. You obviously can't answer that at the moment because you've only done one site in Scotland, but yeah.
I mean, one of my when I worked in ELV.
Is ELV, we're talking about end-of-life vehicles?
End-of-life vehicles. They had one site in Glasgow. The rules pretty much remain the same. There are very little differences between England and Scotland. The reporting is different, the consignment notes are different, but the documentation is always there. It might be in a different form, the reporting might be done at a different frequency, the way you will report the waste movement will be different. However, the rules and regulations pretty much remain the same. There are very little differences. They are not that major.
Yeah, basically we're trying to protect the environment from both agencies, aren't we? Yeah.
Exactly. And as for the officers themselves, I think it depends on the officer. So one of the things that I've seen with the environment agency over the years, sometimes you will get a brilliant officer who wants to work with you. They want to make your site better and they want to help you. Others will come there and they just want you penalty, penalty, penalty. And then you have some that walk through the site almost like blindfolded. And that was my take on them when I've had the officers like that they will walk through a site and you think, oh no, they're gonna see so many things that are wrong. And then they walk like through there like they are blindfolded because they came to site with the thought that no, they are fine. And what I think it is that if they find something, then they have to go to the office, write a massive report. And I think there is a little bit of that in it, that they...
Bit lazy, eh?
I didn't want to use that word, but yeah, I didn't say that.
Well, in
I don't
I
want to
think
say it's always there, but I have seen one of the officers doing just that, where I've just came back from site, did my own audit, and I was just about to sit down and write it, and then the EA officer comes in. I was like, oh, and literally it was like he will step over something that was non-compliant, and I'm like, never mentioned anything. And the car report came back clean bill, and
I remember that I had a very, when I used to manage landfill sites, I had a very, very good example of that, where something bad had happened at the site and a CP officer turned up about an hour later and they never even mentioned it. And then 3 months later, they were changing job and they stood someplace where they couldn't see this thing. And it was that it had been sorted by then in terms of not causing pollution. And they stood there and said, oh, is that a problem down there? And they couldn't even see it from where they were standing. And I was like, you knew about that all along. And then the other side of that coin is the ones I used to always hate is the ones that would not say anything on site. And then they'd go back to the office and write you a big letter to say you've got this wrong. And, why did we not discuss that on site? So... But in fairness, I did professional interviews for Chartered Institute Waste Management last week. And one of the ladies, I'll not mention name, was an environment agency officer. And I got the impression that she was a very good officer in terms of how she dealt with things and how she worked with companies to try and, protect the environment, but also to improve the operation of the sites. So there are good officers out there. I think part of the problem is they're maybe not allowed to be good officers nowadays. I think they've got restrictions.
What I thought some of the part of it is the recruitment process. So it doesn't count. Your CV is your CV, your cover letter will be a cover letter, but you need to go through the whole process of writing so many words on a situation, so and so. What I've been told by somebody who got to the EA for a job, he applied 5 times, always the same CV. But he actually bought himself a book that told him how to write these things, how to match the keywords so the system will pick it. And I'm not exactly a ticking off the box a kind of person. So eventually, not necessarily people with the right knowledge will get to the jobs, but those who know how to make the system recognize their keywords.
Yeah. So that brings me back to the question list, Anna. What brought you into the world of waste management? Was it always your ambition to be involved in waste management, or did you like me? Did you take a wrong turn in your life?
Was it a wrong turn though?
Well, a wrong turn and a right turning it might be.
So specifically to waste, it was a pure luck. And I call it luck because I will never change it for anything else. I have always been an environmentalist. I've started in 1999 when I went for my post-primary school, which was a 5-year technical school, and that was water and wastewater treatment. That's why, environment agency, my dream job for a long time was places like Yorkshire Water in this region. That never happened either. And then after I arrived to the UK, I worked for 6.5 years in a cash recycling place, cash industry. So we would take cash from the banks and from retail places. We would count it, check for counterfeits, sorted, then some of it will go back to the ATMs, rest of it will go to be shredded or destroyed. And that was brilliant, loved it. But then after 6.5 years, I thought, but 2 degrees in environmental science, and that is completely going to waste. So I thought that it is time for me to go back and do something with my degrees. So I went back to work in a laboratory that was ALS, and the job was brilliant, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. As much as being in the laboratory and doing the analysis was great, it was still not applying fully my environmental knowledge. So I started looking for another employment, and I were offered 2 jobs. One was better paid than the other. One was very close home and working for a top brand cosmetics manufacturer as a quality control person. And the other one was working in waste, catalytic converter dismantling, dirty. And I took the right decision and I went to waste, never turned back. So that's how I landed in waste.
So what
And
job
as I
was
say,
it, did you say?
That was I were initially employed as trainee analyst to test the content of platinum group metals within the catalytic converter core, which is like a ceramic powder. Inside that powder, you will have the platinum, palladium, and rhodium. And
Wow.
we will perform an XRF analysis on it. And based on that analysis, we will then be able to evaluate how much money each of those catalytic converter was worth.
Wow, that's quite
That makes sense.
interesting. So
So
to take the
if you
yeah.
ever wondered why people steal catalytic converters, especially from Honda Jazzes, they are worth a lot of money.
Really?
From a Honda Jazz.
Yeah,
That's probably the biggest amount of money. That's 100 jazzes.
okay, maybe I shouldn't say which ones are the most worth, because people might go out there and, however, the criminals know. Whoever is doing it, like they do it in the daylight. Some vehicles have the catalytic converter fitted directly underneath the vehicle, where it is very easy access. You literally go under the vehicle, lift it up, somebody goes under with the angle grinder, zoom, zoom, gone. And then you go to your car, you try to start your engine, and then you get a message saying, sorry, I cannot start it, something is missing. Because on the catalytic converter, you also have an oxygen sensor, which is communicated with your car computer. And if the oxygen sensor is missing, the car thinks, I cannot start because I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
And
fair
it costs
enough.
a lot of money to replace it. However, it is a part of the circular economy that the catalytic converters are taken out from the vehicle at the stage of dismantling, and then they are being sent to facilities like this one I've worked for, where we will separate all of the components, and it was the ceramic core that was having the most value. So then we will send it to smelters, and they will recover the precious metals out of it and then put it back on the market.
Really, that's actually quite fascinating. So what's in there? Vanadium,
Platinum, palladium, and rhodium.
Platinum, palladium, rhodium. So how much is in there then? Do you know?
I mean, that depends on the size of every catalytic converter is different. You have some that have absolutely nothing in it, and then you have some, especially the high performance vehicle that have a start stop, because when you stop your vehicle and your engine goes off, as soon as you start it, the emissions have to match the specifications, meaning that you have to have more of the precious metals within it, even when the engine is colder.
Right, okay.
Which means that the vehicles with stop-start technology will have much more of those precious metals within it, because they can then work on the lower temperatures. However, vehicles with AdBlue have absolutely zero. So diesel vehicles that take AdBlue, no value whatsoever.
Well, I tell you what, bless it, my car is probably in that no value whatsoever.
We're getting our education today, Jane, about catalytic converters.
Do you know, I heard a while back about people nicking catalytic converters off cars, quite a few years ago, but I hadn't really appreciated why. but again, it must be worth quite a bit of money.
Again, those values for every unit will also change depending on how the stock market is doing, as those are commodities. The prices vary all the time. So, for example, when COVID first hit and there was a massive shortage of everything purely because the chain of delivery, everything collapsed. So, for example, rhodium jumped from 300 per gram to almost 600 per gram.
Wow.
So when I first started working, the prices were 20 for platinum, 30 for palladium, and 60 for rhodium. 3 years later, it was 20, 60, and 520.
Wow, that's quite a difference, isn't it? Up and down, up and down.
For example, so a one unit could be worth 500 quid today, 300 quid tomorrow, depending how the pressure. That was part of my role. That not only I had to look out for what is the contents of the precious metals within each unit, but I also had to follow the London Stock Exchange to see what are the current values and correlate that. Because somebody could come to and knock the door and say, I've got a unit for sale. And we had in our catalog, we had 5,000 units.
Wow.
That's how many of them. And as new cars are being manufactured all the time, new units are being introduced onto market. Hence, the role of the analyst was required. Because every time we had a unit delivered that we didn't have in our catalog, we would have to test it and add it to our catalog.
You know what? We had Amy Bird on
That's
the
exactly,
other week.
you stolen that one from me,
Yeah.
Jane. That was episode 38, because I just looked
I
up the
did.
number.
I did listen to Amy, and as I was listening to it, I had a giggle, because within the metal industry, that's pretty much what it is. We don't look at metals in the waste industry as a waste; it's a commodity.
Yeah.
I remember.
I'm not sure about Amy. I don't want to speak for her, but I think that within the industries where waste are not, we're gonna get later to if I could, what would I change? Not all waste, in my opinion, should be seen as waste. Because it's not. It's a commodity, it's something that we need. It's a raw materials. And categorizing something as waste that is wanted, desired, and paid for shouldn't be waste. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, the one that always sticks in my memory, Anna, is when I was at university, the whole thing about catalytic converters was coming out, and one of my lecturers was absolutely adamant that catalytic converters was the wrong way to go, because if you fit a catalytic converter, the car uses more fuel per mile, and he was convinced that what the sector should have been doing was making more and more efficient vehicles that used less and less fuel to travel distance, and that way you would overall cut down the amount of pollution. And he was adamant to this day that was the way forward. So it's quite interesting. It's always these environmental arguments. There's always yes, the catalytic converter removes the pollution, but it also uses more fuel. So there's always a knock-on effect. But I'm not totally convinced he was right, because I think air pollution is a big issue, and the catalytic converters have a big change. But
I think that even if it used less fuel and the catalytic converter wouldn't be in place, still all of those substances that are being reduced or their toxic effect is being completely mitigated thanks to the use of catalytic converter, then they would be emitted just in the smaller volumes. So if the catalytic converter works as it should, all we have is CO2 and water.
Yeah.
It's better than having all of the products that are an effect of burning fuel. You will have all of the sulfurs, you will have all of the nitrogens, you will have all of the other chemicals. So overall, I still think that yes, fantastic work to reduce the amount of fuel and make them more efficient. Happy days. But what they did actually with diesel vehicles, somebody did have an idea of having an AdBlue. So yes, the filter is still required, the DPF, diesel particulate filter. Solid particles in the soot is being taken out. It is the AdBlue that takes care of all of the other chemicals that are byproduct of burning fuel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Do you know what? This is fascinating. I've got so many questions, but it's more about the operation of a catalytic converter than anything else. So I think I'll leave those.
We better move on.
Yeah, that's right.
So in terms of your roles you've had or projects you've done, Anna, any favourites that stick out? What's been your favourite?
I did think about it. I don't think I had a favorite. I'm grateful for every job that I held in my life because each and every single one of them taught me different things, different skills. But if I were to pick one, that would actually be one that was before waste, where I were a machine operator at the cash industry. And because my responsibility there as well was to fix the machinery, that was the one job that I could, if something broke down, I could find the issue and fix it myself. And probably that was my favorite because I could just focus on that problem, find a solution to the problem and deliver.
Yeah, you need to
I could do
transfer
it in
that.
such and I could do it in such a short space of time when it was like, within 2 hours I could fix a problem. Where the problems within our industry now and the projects within the industry drag.
Yeah.
And that is something that I like to have things done quick now.
I was just going to say you should turn that on to trying to fix some of these MRFs when they go wrong and there's conveyor bolts. You should.
I had a bit of a flashback.
Yeah, but I'm not an engineer there, so I couldn't. And even when I have worked, yes, in the catalytic converter place, when something broke down, I was the person going there and fixing it. And until today, my better half still works on that place. And my phone is full of, Anna, this doesn't work. Anna, that doesn't work. What can be the problem?
I had a
I love it.
I had a flashback to my first job at Shanks and McEwen, which is now Renew, which I think you know that company. And I shared an office with a photocopier, the communal photocopier, and it was forever breaking down. And between me listening to the engineer and not so much helping the engineer, but over time, I became quite expert at fixing this photocopier.
What, you just give it a kick and it was fine?
No, yeah, there were certain things that went wrong with it, and nine times out of 10, what went wrong with a photocopier was somebody would jam a little tiny bit of paper someplace in the copier, and the art of fixing the photocopier was finding that tiny little bit of paper. Once you found that little bit of paper, normally it worked okay again.
I think, Anna, I would be the person on your phone going, Anna, can you fix it? Anna, can you sort this one out? Don't rubbish.
I have always been very mechanical. And I like to think in systems, and if I know how something works, then just going backwards, the steps of tracing what went wrong, what could cause it, and where the problem is. I absolutely love doing things like that, and it is something that I have missed being outside of the operational roles. And very often when in companies you have maintenance team, they don't take suggestions very well because A, I'm not a guy. B, I don't work for maintenance. And it took me very long time when I worked at the cash industry. We had engineers who would come there and be responsible for fixing the problems. And I was persistent. I were always going, oh, what broke? What's this? What's that? And just by being a pest, and I cannot put it in any other words, because sometimes they would tell me, you woman, go away, paint your nails or something. But eventually I have earned that trust with them, that they will entrust me to go and fix things for them. Sometimes some things will break and I'll just pick up a phone and say, this and that broke, but I don't think you have to come over. I just want to confirm that you are happy with me addressing it. And eventually I've earned that trust with them. But it wasn't easy.
No, that's being a woman in A, the waste industry, or B, a traditional engineering industry, Anna, I think. But we can debate that for hours. So
I don't like to see it as being, because I believe that even females can apply themselves and achieve the most anything they want.
I would absolutely agree.
For as long as they take that I'm a woman out of their mind. No, you are not a woman. You are a good operator. You are not a woman. You are a good engineer. And I don't like to take that woman word into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a driver. I'm not a female driver. I'm a driver.
It shouldn't matter, should it?
It shouldn't matter. And
No.
that's my argument with all of the feminism and the, we women, we can achieve. Yes, we can. Just take that woman out of it. Anybody can achieve for as long as they apply themselves. Anybody can achieve anything they want.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter.
So tell us about, you've had your favourite role. What about your worst role? Have you had any really bad things happen or funny things that you think, oh my God, that is just hilarious? And, anything that you kind of think you want to share with people?
I think we have discussed the one thing that I have worked for. It took me a while because did I have the worst role? No, because as I say, every role, even if it's something you don't find yourself in, you learn something. So I always try to look for the positives. I was thinking about something funny. So I was once on the call meeting with people from the industry of catalytic converter. And we were discussing something specific and how the CAT converters are being opened and split. Within our industry or the sector, we never talk about it as a catalytic converter. We just call them CATs. So then I was explaining how you take a cat, you put it on the alligator shears, and then you cut it in half, and then you remove the skins, which is the metal shell. But that's how we refer to things. And then we had somebody leaving the meeting. I had no idea why. Apparently that was somebody who didn't know, because that was somebody from finance, and they didn't know, and they thought that we are talking about skinning cats.
Oh no, oh no.
Because we were talking jargon, and that was the one person who was from the outside, and everybody was talking cats. And instead of using, and the metal shell, no, it's the skin of the cat, yeah. Somebody couldn't handle it because apparently she had 3 of those creatures at home.
That's quite funny. Everybody has their own acronyms, don't they, or their own sort of shorthand for things. And if you could actually sit there and in some waste chats and think, I have no idea what they're talking about. Yeah, exactly. But oh, bless.
So yeah, unfortunately, that was we only found out a few days later when
she handed in a notice.
Oh, yeah. So I think that was I found it funny. That person probably didn't. But cat is so much shorter than saying catalytic converter. So
Yeah,
yes, we
I
do
would
say
agree
cats.
there.
Yeah, so we do use cats all the time, and cutting cats in half is not taken well by everybody.
I like that one. So how do you find? Do you think your role, the various roles you've had in the waste sector? Do you think has that changed your opinions or habits out with the workplace? Do you feel you need to sort of preach the environmental bit, or were you already doing that in your life?
So as I mentioned before, I have been an environmentally conscious person from 25 years now. So it hasn't changed much in terms of that I will start doing something now that I haven't before. I have always been an environmentally thinking person. I mean, I'm not sure if I haven't started doing anything any different. I do try not to teach people from outside because nobody likes to be told that they're doing something wrong. So even if somebody comes,
you said there you try not to. That makes it sound like you maybe do.
yeah, because when somebody say, "Oh, I recycle everything," I say, "Yeah, fantastic, but do you actually look at the labels? Because so many packaging is not recyclable. Maybe the simpler recycling will change it when every council and every organization will have exactly the same rules, but at current, not every council is the same thing. Now, some organizations manage to recycle some components, but not everybody does.
You need to follow what's happening in Northern Ireland because Northern Ireland is trying to put the same recycling in every council in Northern Ireland. So that'll be one to watch.
I mean, there is a lot of things, and if it's going to about the environment, people also have misconceptions about what the environment is. Sustainability is a brilliant one. Now, anybody who speaks about sustainability, everybody thinks straight away carbon footprint, climate change. It is so, somebody put it, I've seen a post a few months ago on LinkedIn. and that was a carbon tunnel vision, where carbon is the main focus. But what about all of the other things, environmentally much more important, in my opinion, this is just my own opinion, than carbon footprint. By addressing some of the other environmental problems that we have, may it be biodiversity, may it be regenerative agriculture, which I think will be much better, the reduction of carbon footprint would be a side effect. But we focus just on that one tiny bit and go around it, again, just my opinion, completely wrong way.
Yeah,
So
we were talking about that the other week, weren't we? About carbon footprint, carbon. What does carbon mean? And let's get it a bit more realistic.
yeah,
Well, that's
so there's so many environmental problems we could be addressing, and I am all for clean air, clean water, having access to natural environments and all that, all for it. But focusing purely on carbon, it's tunnel vision.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've got a busy work life. How do you get away from it all and relax from work? Or do you just work all the time?
You will be very disappointed to hear, no, I do not work all the time. I do take as much as possible time off and away from civic areas. I do like hiking. I do like going for bike rides. Oh, I used to. But it is any time and any chance I will have to disappear from the city, sit in the car, drive for miles. So driving to Glasgow is a very pleasant drive for me. I love it. Lake District, my second favorite place on the island. North Wales, my number one place in the island. So that is pretty much what I do. And if I can connect it with my second best hobby, which is photography, even better. I will take my camera wherever I go. And for me, my favorite is the macro photography, which is the bugs, the flowers, the small and tiny things. Somebody told me that means that I focus on details a lot. Maybe.
That's maybe a good thing.
Yeah, that is maybe a good thing. I suppose
those two things are definitely my distressors. So every time I will have a little bit of a down day, I will grab my camera and just go for a walk around the block, if that's all it is. And sometimes I come back home with nothing, even more frustrated, but at least I got my walk.
Yeah, have you got lots of pictures of waste on your camera then as well?
On my phone, yes. I mean, maybe not as much anymore, since the companies that I have worked for quite a long time now. Pretty much every company have the policy of not using personal mobile on the premises. So all of the pictures were taken on the company's devices. So as I left the devices behind me. So it's not too bad. But I used to have a lot of cats, and not the nice ones on my phone. That was a long time ago.
I still, do you know what? I was showing somebody my photographs the other day, and I got so far, and then it was like waste. Right, okay, moving on from that one. So, what about your current role? What do you want to achieve? What's next for you? Where do you see your company going?
World domination as a
World
amateur
domination.
assessor, I think.
Anna, is that what we're looking for here? Is that how you'd like to badge yourself and get yourself set up?
I don't have that kind of tendencies of being a dictator for any sort. I think that's too much responsibility. Doing the WA meetups is brilliant. What I would really love to get into is the training and passing the knowledge to other people. I'm passionate about it, and I think I have been even given the feedback previously that I can explain things in a very good way, and I've got a lot of information and a lot of knowledge to pass down, and that's what I would like to do. I want to be there and help others.
Yeah, especially when you've been there and and you've got that experience that you can pass on, which is good.
I think there's definitely, from my experience with the sector, there is definitely a bit of I'm not so much saying a brain drain with the training and assessment side, but certainly a lot of the people I grew up through are all older and all sort of retiring and moving out of the sector. And I think there is a big, going forward, there is going to be a big requirement for new people, new assessors, new trainers coming through for that younger generation.
So as we have talked before, one of the green skills that everybody is talking about, but nobody can really define what the green skills required are. And that was one of the questions that I have asked some other people some time ago was, how are you planning to attract the people who know the sector, who can train the newcomers? How are you going to attract them as an industry? There is a lot of talk, oh, we need to force government to finance it more. Forget about the government. I think you have also seen that discussion on LinkedIn some time ago when I have commented like, take it away from the government. By the time government gets around it, the requirements will change and we're going to be left behind again because waste is always an afterthought. We as an industry need to get out there, get the new talent into the industry rather than hoping that government is going to help. I wouldn't hold my breath.
Totally agree there. The whole WAMATAB scheme was set up by the industry. It wasn't set up by government. And that's what we've been using for the last, however many years. It's got to be industry that drives these things.
So is there a fact, Anna, that you want to share with your share about your job or your sector, which you think people might not know? Well, to be honest, I've kind of learned quite a lot about catalytic converters, but
and cats,
and skinning them on an alligator thingamabob. So, but I was just wondering whether there was anything else, because that's that. I mean, if you haven't got anything else, that's my top one.
No, for me, I think the one thing that I would like the people, but I mean as a public, our sector and our industry or the environmental sector as a whole, something that I think we should focus more is something I've mentioned already is stop thinking of sustainability as carbon footprint only. Focus on the wider picture. That's how I received my education. Yes, we did talk about climate change. That was about a week out of 5 years. Because environmental protection is so much more. And all we hear about now is ESG score, it's carbon credits, greenhouse gas, calculations and things like that. But that's not all. And all I wish is that the industry just started thinking a bit wider picture. Because it's not I'm all for circular economy. Absolutely. I think that if we only nail circular economy, reduction of carbon footprint would be a side effect. If we've managed to stop digging out all of the raw materials out of the earth and just started reusing what we already have in a circulation, getting all of the things that we call waste, I wish we start using them resource, or at least find a different word for it, because waste is so negative to it. I think that the word waste on its own has a very negative sound. And when I worked in the cat industry, I had to find a different way of saying, where do I work? So people got more interested. So instead of saying I work in waste industry, I had something like recovery of precious metals from secondary materials. They still didn't have a clue, but at least as soon as I said waste, everyone was like, oh, must stink then. No, it doesn't. Because when you speak to a public that you work in waste industry, the first thought is Willy bin. The wider public doesn't see what's happening with the rubbish.
That's why we're doing this podcast, Anna, to try and educate the wider public.
But then, if the general public does not listen to waste industry podcasts,
this is what we're trying to change.
How do we get to the general public? It's only, I think that we in our sector, we live in our own bubbles. If you look at your own LinkedIn, who do you watch? Who watches you? Environmental sector. In your case, it would be probably university and the educational sector. But again, those will be people who already watch you. Even today's recording, it will be listened to people within the industry.
No, you're right.
How do we get to those who are outside of our own bubble?
See, to be honest, I think that's where industry bodies like CIWM should be much more active in promoting the sector out with this. We're very good. The CRW is very good at getting the waste industry to talk to the waste industry. If we put in a score, we're probably really poor at getting the waste industry to talk out to other industries. And I think everybody's got a part to play in that. I think every member of CRWM, everybody that's chartered, everybody has got a role to play in trying to change that.
The radical idea, something that I have had, and I don't know if you've ever been to Poland. I think you have. You said that you have.
I have been to Krakow because my son was there for about 4 months at university. So that's my one and only time in Poland.
And wasn't it the comment you made that you found it very clean?
I found it extremely clean. No litter in the streets, no litter any place.
And do you know why? We are being taught from a very early age that littering is bad, is immoral. You don't do it. But we were taught that from a school age. So when I were in primary school, you know that I think in the June we have the Earth Day or something like that. So schools on the Earth Day, the primary schools, every school was given an area. We would be given a litter pickers and a bin and a bags, and we would be led into a park and we would pick litter on a World Day, because that's how you teach youngsters. If you are going out there and you will be picking it, you will think twice before discarding that candy wrapper. That's how you teach the young generation, and that is why Poland is a clean country, because we all take responsibility over it, and it's just seen as something wrong and shameful. If you are being seen discarding something on the ground, somebody else will come like, mate, I think you dropped something.
Yeah, if you do that here, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're talking to the converted there, Anna. I think we're both. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. It's not. How about introducing lessons? I don't know how the education system works in here in terms of primary school. I don't have children on that age at school. Is anything like that being taught in primary schools in here?
Well, to be honest, I'm getting a bit old and cynical nowadays. That it's almost like a big wheel. Years and years ago, there was loads of stuff done in schools. There was loads of stuff about waste and litter and so on in schools, and then it gets forgotten about, and then somebody else picks it up, and it's almost that way. There's nothing's new in this sector. We seem to pick things up and drop them quite quickly. We don't seem to do the follow through and keep repeating the message.
It should be a part of the curriculum that children should be taught about environment, and not only about carbon footprint, other things as well.
Anyway, so we asked all our guests for one piece of their favourite piece of slang or dialect, or maybe an expression you've heard that you thought, what on earth does that mean? Any favourites spring to mind?
Nothing. I mean, for me, as being not a native speaker, I've heard a lot of things that I was like, what does that mean? But no, I don't have one like that. But the one that is a favourite of mine and that I run with in both professional and private life is what's the worst that can happen? And I think that we all should apply it. It's the basic question for a risk assessment, and that is the professional look at it. So obviously you have a new project and you ask yourself that question, you run the list, what's the worst that can happen, and then you plan actions to mitigate the risk. And that's what I also apply in life. I'm not one to sit back and take safe bets in life, but before I make a decision, that's the one thing that I first do. And then I weigh, should I not, just based on those answers. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, can I die? So reaching out to companies like yourself, when I've sent the emails and say, are you looking to expand on the pool of your assessors? When I was sending that email, I was like, what's the worst that can happen? They will never respond to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, things like that. And I think that in organizations, we should ask that question more, not just for the risk assessment purpose. But whenever there is a new project, instead of just that one person taking it to the manager and saying, and they just run with it without asking that question. What I would dream of is having a team of people where somebody has an idea, they bring the managers from different departments or the people who are generally known as being opinionated. The more opinionated, the better. Sit them all in a room saying, I've got an idea, that's what I want to do. Now please dismantle it. Tell me where it's wrong. Spend few hours on the brainstorming. Allow people to say whatever they think of it. And at least then you know what can go wrong, what can happen. You can, based on that, improve it and save yourself potentially a lot of time and money. Because sometimes people from a completely different department can really have a lot of insight. So tell me where it's wrong. Tell me where is my thing weak. Just help me. That is something that we are missing in organizations. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want to say anything. He's my boss. I don't want to upset anybody. And because I were always that person asking that questions on the meetings, nobody liked me. Because I was grumpy, I were always the one criticizing. But we need that criticism. That's my opinion. That if we don't criticize things at the stage of idea and planning, things will be done and they will go wrong because nobody thought of it before.
I think it's interesting,
that's my opinion.
actually asking people, you kind of think of something and you think, right, okay, who can I ask that can look at this, or actually not knowing who, or not even thinking about the right person or the right people to ask with the right background, which isn't the background that you've expected. It's something totally different from a totally different angle, which is quite interesting.
I think that the good example out there at the moment, Jane, seems to be the emission trading scheme for the incineration being included in the emission trading scheme.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, it seems like the worst idea the government's ever come up with. But when they put it in place, it's on paper it seemed fairly sensible to them. But there's plenty of people out there pointing out that it's the councils that feed the waste to these incinerators, and the councils can't actually control the amount of plastic in it, and the councils are the ones who are going to get charged for the emission trading scheme. So it's almost counterproductive what they've done, and nobody seemed to think that through when they issued it. And it's what you're saying, Anna. It's that people almost being able to ask the daft question without being viewed as the daft person.
Yeah.
I'm whoever knows me, they know that I'm not afraid to ask a daft question. I had a teacher at school. Again, I was so fortunate getting really good teachers at school. There was a quote on the wall written that it was something from a Chinese knowledge that when you ask a question, you are embarrassed only that one time, but when you don't know, it's an embarrassment for the rest of your life. Something alongside those lines. So again, maybe that's why I am the way I am, because I had such a good teachers. And it's like, don't be afraid to raise your hands. If you don't know, ask the question.
I think that's what I feel in this podcast, Alistair. I feel like I'm the one asking the dumb questions, the daft questions. It's like, why does that work? How does it work? Can you tell me that again?
I appreciate people like that, because if you ask that question, that means that other people might not know either, and they are afraid to ask the question. So I say, be brave. Raise your hand.
I just think Alistair must know everything. You see.
No, I think we've probably learnt as much through these podcasts as I've learnt. I've certainly learnt
I've learnt loads.
Just being able to chat through with people, and it's probably fairly, when you think about it, it's probably fairly random that we've got a set of questions that we've pretty much stuck to, and we ask the same questions every time, but it's always totally different answers because people are coming at it from a totally different perspective. And yes, we ask supplementary questions, but at the end of the day, it's to me, it's been quite fascinating that just the different levels of knowledge and passions people have got that has been brought out. So
I think we go down different rabbit holes with different people.
So the last question I've got for you, Anna, is I'm going to give you a magic wand to change one thing in the sector. What would you like it to be? It's probably going to be ask more questions.
Definition of waste.
Definition of waste. What would you like it to be?
I would like to change it in a way were things that are not discarded, bought, wanted, and bought and sold for. Things that in the industry, we, people who actually practice waste, see as commodities. I would like them to be taken out. So the cat converter. Yes, it is taken out of a vehicle that has been a waste. Once somebody wants to buy it, and for a good money, shouldn't be sold as waste. If you have a clean skip of a material, may it be in aluminium, why is it being removed from site as waste? Not us. Could we change the end of waste criteria like we have for compost for the PAS 100, the PAS 110? Could we have something like that? So you have a skip of aluminium at the end of a shredder, and it is a 99.9% cleanliness. Why is it looked at as waste? It's not, it's a commodity. It's somebody that we need to bring back, and maybe deregulating it a smidge, taking it out of the waste, improving the recycling rates would help the industry a little bit and stop the waste being seen as all of the bad and the smelly. It will change a little bit. Like, when I've read the definition of waste, which is something that is discarded or must be discarded, something that nobody wants anymore, and then I had a cat converter that people were bidding over to whoever pays more gets it. How is that fitting the definition of waste? It doesn't. In my opinion, it doesn't.
I suppose
know
it's managing the environmental impact and making sure that as long as you're in managing that environmental impact, then why, again, it's how do you do that without certain types of regulations? I suppose it's just making sure that that is covered.
There should be a regulation that should help the businesses to achieve as clean grade of those recyclates, to have as much as the end of waste as possible. So yes, it still could be regulated by you must achieve minimum 98% cleanliness on that skip of aluminium. So yes, sample it, and if your sample at random proves that you are still within the, let's call it PAS, whatever number for aluminium, it's no longer waste. It improves your recyclability levels. Every waste sector, they have to report on how much waste they've recycled. That would boost that so much. That would be financial, look better for them, because their charges will be less with the agencies. It will change a lot and deregulate the industry a little bit, help us to also help the environment, because for now, if it doesn't matter if I have a skip and I can either have mixed metals that will be taken somewhere else and they resorted, but I could have something much cleaner and improve it at this stage, sell it for better price, have less contamination in it. I think it would improve things a lot.
Yeah, you just wonder why that would be called a waste, wouldn't you? I mean, it's not a waste, is it? It's
So
you've kind of put it through a process and now it's a product.
It's a product. So say once it achieves that cleanliness status, like you have with PAS 100 with compost, yes, you have to test it so often, you have to send it for analysis, make sure that it fulfills the standard, then you get a certification as it is end of waste. So even from end of life vehicles, you have the green parts. So it is like an end of waste process for the scrap industry. For as long as you can show that you do it in the right way, not all of the parts of the vehicles are being sent for scrap. Some of them are being resold as a green waste, so as a green parts put back on the vehicles, meaning less of it has to be manufactured, more readily available. Happy days.
Yeah, well,
but the end of waste process is also so complicated that many was like, I'm not gonna bother.
Yeah. No, I can see that.
I wish that one thing that will change.
Okay.
We will have less waste around.
I'm not sure we can grant that wish, Anna, because that's quite a complicated one to change.
But
I think it's beyond our powers.
We've got our wish, we've got our wand. And lastly, Anna, what advice would you give to younger generation, people coming into the industry, to want to come into the industry? You said earlier about not calling it waste, which kind of makes sense as well. But how do we invite people into the waste industry? How do we get them in and keep them?
Keeping them,
Once you're in it, you don't go, do you?
Some do, but for those who are already in, even if they are on the lowest level of employment, they are standing then on a picking line. Get trained. There is so much potential within the waste industry. If you are only willing to spend a little bit more time, get trained, apply yourself, go to your manager, ask, is there something else I could do? Is there any training I can do to get better, go higher? And I always say, aim high. The managerial, it is so hard to find good managers. It is really lonely on the top, as somebody said once. We have a lot of people who are willing to do the bottom jobs, but to find a good managers, it's so difficult. There is many people who aspire to be managers, but not everybody should be a manager. Very often we give managerial positions to people who are good at their job, but they don't have a good managerial skills.
Yeah,
They can't
that's
be
true.
and because there is lack of choice, and the businesses very often don't see the need to invest in the people, so they have a brilliant operative, and that operative later on gets to a team leader stage, and that's a natural progression. They will become a supervisor and then manager. Being a manager is a little bit more than being good at their job.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Okay, basically we've got training.
Training, get educated, aim high and ask questions. Go to the manager and say, look, I would like to see myself in that team leader position. What do I need to do? And just prove yourself that you can do it before you start getting paid for it. Because again, then a lot of youth then responds with, well, I don't get paid for that. No, you first need to show that you can do before somebody offers you to pay. And that's the one thing. And it applies to everybody. It applied to us when we were young. We thought that no, it's always the same case with every generation. It's not just this one.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think that's us exhausted our extensive question set. So thank you very much for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Love chatting about cats. We've probably got all these cat lovers or we'll be deleting the podcast off the list now. But no, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you.
In the heart of air where the echoes ring, there's a place that fights the chaos out beyond it sings. They're the warriors for the earth, fighting every day. An environmental consultancy leading the way. They train the fires, they sharpen the blades, battling the waste that pollutes and degrades. With knowledge as their weapon, they educate and train. I'll be an environmental, breaking the chain. From the mountains to the seas, they spread the call, aiming for a future where the world will not fall. With sustainability as their creed, they march on.